Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here at the Hendrickson Library at the Center for the Institute of Western Civilization. I got it out, John.
That's right.
All right. Very good. Well, welcome back. So, John, I'm going to kick things off here, and I need to share something with you.
Yeah.
I've been trying to find ways to make the show better, or at least more compelling to our listeners. And been asking for advice on different things. And so one of the things that I read, it was on a sort of a digital marketing, whatever sort of tips on the internet, is that I need to be more animated. Mm-hmm. And I need to really like almost overdo it.
Yeah.
So, but I think that goes for the all of the on-air talent, not just your host.
Yeah.
So I'm going to challenge you. Are you going to be able to over-animate yourself and over-emote and all of it?
I'm going to try.
Okay, because we're counting on you. I mean, the folks are saying, anyway, I'm just kidding, John. Be yourself.
Yeah.
And I will try to be the one to make this as compelling as possible. So, to that end, John, we got a lot to talk about today. And before we go any further, I want to make sure that all the folks out there are liked and subscribed and checking us out both on audio and video wherever you consume podcasts. Our channel can be found just about anywhere that you enjoy such things. But we do have a lot to talk about today. And because we want to be as entertaining and exciting as possible, we're going to talk about tax policy. Mm-hmm. So it's not only, John, am I expecting you to be very exciting and dynamic, I'm going to expect you to be very exciting and dynamic on tax policy.
Yes.
So I think you can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's dive into it. I mean, first, I think administratively, I want to remind all of our listeners that our annual ITR NFIB Tax Day Luncheon is coming up on Wednesday. What day of the week is that, John?
Next Wednesday.
Is that the 26th?
Yes.
It's the 26th.
Yep. Next.
So if you're listening to the show, you're probably subscribed to us on email or whatnot. If you didn't get that, you can find the invite there on our website, I believe. But make sure you get in there because we'd love to see you at Tax Day. We're going to have our good friend Vance Ginn there.
Yes, yep.
Speaking. Always good to hear from Vance. And Attorney General Brenda Byrd.
Yes.
It's going to be a really good event. So anyway, get the details on that. Where should we start, John? Do you want to start? I think maybe with the REC. That seems to be the kind of the news event. Mm-hmm. But we've talked about this. I think every time the REC comes out, we try to touch on it on the show. But this is the state's revenue estimate. It's how much money is the state bringing in tax revenue, your tax dollars. How much is the state going to collect? And it's a guessing game. We get that. The 3-member board gets together and decides how much they want to do. The March one, I probably is the most significant one of the 3 times a year they meet. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Because this is the one on which they have to base the state budget. If this had gone up from the December estimate, okay, well, there's more money, but they can't. Doesn't mean they're going to go spend more necessarily. But if it goes down, they have to use it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the March one's the big one, and now I think we've got the March revenue estimate. Legislature can get on about spending our money and figuring out how much of it to spend, and moving through the remainder of session. What are your thoughts on the REC? Because it did go down a little bit from December.
It did, yeah, and of course the downward. If you're listening to the media, basically they made it sound like this is the sky is falling, that this is a budget crisis, which I don't agree with. I mean, what's happening here is revenues are actually still, I would say, strong. What's happening is that the income tax cuts are in effect, and Iowans are keeping more of their money.
So wait a minute. We cut taxes, and less tax money is coming in because of the tax cuts.
Yes, yeah.
Boy, breaking news.
Yeah.
Tax cuts cut taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, the critics are saying this is, this is creating a budget hole, which is not accurate. And so, basically what they said is that the fiscal year 26, which is the budget they're planning for now, will bring in roughly $8.5 billion. And that is lower than expected because of the phased-in flat tax, which, as I said, it was expected. And of course, you have some other headwinds that have come in from the economy with inflation and other factors. But this they had anticipated this, and the legislature had acted accordingly by keeping spending under control, and so this is not a situation like our neighbors to the north in Minnesota where they blew almost a $19 billion surplus, raised taxes and fees about $10 billion, and now they have a $6 billion budget deficit.
Right. Here's the point that I've sort of circled around on all of this. Yes, our revenues are down over last year. And they dipped even a little bit from the previous revenue estimate for this year. Fine. When we passed the tax cuts that the series of them got us to the 3.8% flat tax, the idea was that we would use the Taxpayer Relief Fund and the budget surplus to bring down tax rates to align it with a long-term view of the money that the state would need to operate. And where we're at is absolutely on that path, right?
Yes, yeah, yep.
If all we were ever going to do is cut taxes down to just a little bit above what the state needed every year in growth, the Taxpayer Relief Fund would just sit there and we'd never use it. The whole point of having that stockpile of money was to phase in tax relief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By its very nature. And as we also know, if we're never going to use the Taxpayer Relief Fund, and we're still not even fully dipping into it.
No.
If we're never going to use the Taxpayer Relief Fund, it's just going to sit there like a giant magnet for growing government.
That's right.
Because we know that'll happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is the plan, is to cut taxes, reduce the revenue that comes into the state, and as we grow back out of it, we use the Taxpayer Relief Fund to phase that in. And the Democrats on this, and look, it's their job to oppose this, but trying to say, well, you're using one-time money to fund the budget. Well, in a very strict sense, that's true, and we used to talk about that a lot, right? It's different when you are using one-time money to grow government, to grow those ongoing expenditures, because that's always there. When you're using one-time money to return it to the taxpayers, is an entirely different thing to do here. And we know we've got this long-term plan to cash flow the budget. And here's one other thing that I do try to remind legislators as we talk about this, because I know that there is a sense, okay, well, are we sure we can fund these things in perpetuity, right? Mm-hmm. That are we going to have enough money? Just a reminder, you still control the budget.
That's right, yeah.
If in year 4 it's still a little tight, guess what? You could not spend as much.
Yes.
That is an option that's available to
right.
you
yes.
in the
yeah.
out years.
Yeah.
So take heart, legislature.
Yeah.
The tools are at your disposal to make
That's
all
right.
of this work. So.
And, and I just give a few numbers to our audience, and this is LSA. We still have projected ending balance surpluses here. And so, of course, fiscal year 24, we had a little over $2 billion. Estimated for fiscal year 25, we have a little over $2 billion. And then the ending balance surplus for fiscal year 26 is $1.7 billion. We look at the if I can turn the page here, the our reserve funds, the two cash reserve fund, the economic emergency fund, those continue to be full. Currently, they're at their statutory limit. It's over 961 million. That grows to almost 930 million in the current fiscal year, and then that dips to about 850 million in fiscal year 26, and then the Taxpayer Relief Fund, even when they take some of that cushion, if they do that with the budget, we don't know yet what the budget will be because they haven't But let's just say what LSA is estimating they'll borrow about take about $400 million out of that. So it's going to go from $3.7 billion, and we'll still have $3.5 billion in there by fiscal year 26. That's $3.5 billion in the Taxpayer Relief Fund still there.
Well, when I asked you to step it up and be as exciting as possible, like
was that exciting?
You nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's. Yeah. We're there.
Just think if we were talking about tariffs.
I know it. We
yeah.
The bottom line is there are still billions of dollars that the state has that are either surplus to requirements or specifically identified for the implementation of tax relief. Lots of money. Mm-hmm. I think if we add just the surplus and the Taxpayer Relief Fund, you're looking at $3.5 to $4 billion on an $8.5 billion budget. That's a lot of money. And I think folks, and everything else is in great shape. So I think folks should be not just comfortable with where they're at. I think folks should be excited because I think there continue to be all kinds of opportunities on the horizon. Okay. I don't want to belabor that. I would say another thing, I think on the state's economy, there was a report from the Department of Labor that showed that the state's unemployment rate is lower than the national average, 3.3%. The labor force participation rate increased. That was something that had dipped a lot during COVID, and I'm not quite sure how that's ebbed and flowed since then, but Iowans have work. They have work to do, and I know we've seen some high-profile layoffs in the ag sector, but and I'm sure that there's folks that wish they were working at higher paying jobs than they are, and I don't discount that, but it appears that Iowa's economy is resilient, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. I don't know if you make anything else out of all that. I mean, I know they touched on that during the REC.
Yes, they did.
Too.
Yeah, and that's a good point because that's one prediction they said is that because of that, revenues are gonna go up again. They're gonna swing back up.
What?
And so that's I think that's a good sign.
Now, this is I'm glad you brought that up because the REC estimates fiscal year 26, the next year going out that starts on July 1. That's the one we've been talking about here. But they also take their first look at the following year. So fiscal year 27 that would start a year. I mean, this is exciting. And I told you I was going to step it up, John. We're talking about fiscal years and out years.
Yes.
And it's great. But anyway, this is their first wild guess at fiscal year 27 would be up 5.3%. Mm-hmm. I guess the folks that want to worry, that want to preach doom and gloom will continue to do so. The rest of us here are just going to be thrilled at how great the fiscal management of the state of Iowa has been over the last several years, and long may it continue. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I want to touch on a little bit, John. I want to circle back to the property tax bill a little bit, and we're going to, because we are thrilling and exciting at such a high level right now.
Yes.
I want to kind of remind people, and you have spent, I say we, I have talked to the people on our team that are spending a lot of time looking at this. So I can say you have spent a lot of time looking at this thing. And we sort of talked in broad brushstrokes about what it does. It's a 2% revenue spending limitation, but it's done on the revenue side of things instead of on the expenditure side of things.
Yes, yeah.
That's not 2% on everything. So, but again, those things that it's hard to cap, and that's on the city and county stuff. You've got some other changes the way things are done in school funding, repurposing some credits, and we had a question come in, and we talked about this in pre-production this morning, and it was an ITR member that asked, how does getting rid of rollback cut my property taxes? And the answer is as elusive to that as easy solutions are to our property tax problem. And my thought was, well, it doesn't. Getting rid of rollback doesn't do anything to your property tax bill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I give this example because I think it is one of the things I want to do here on the show is take complicated things or bigger sweeping and try and deliver it in easy to understand. What's the main thing, and try and stay on that. And rollback, we have talked a lot. Rollback's a good thing right now in our current system. It is a taxpayer protection. It insulates us from the damaging impacts, the most damaging impacts of assessment increases, right?
Yes, yeah.
However, there's other ways to go about this. And so as you've looked at this, you think that, and not just you, but others, that this move towards 100% assessments and a levy recalculation, that more or less replaces that rollback system?
Yes, and I think we have to be careful with that because I think, first of all, there's a lot of uncertainty with that because you're changing a system that's been in place since, the 1970s?
Well,
basically.
The rollback.
Yes,
and
yeah,
all that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our property tax system and problems go back well over 100 years.
Yes,
but,
yeah. And so I think one thing that's very crucial about this bill that's before the legislature is the 2% property tax cap, levy limit, revenue limit, whatever you want to call it, because I think we have to focus on the main problem, which is local government spending.
Yeah.
And as you said, it doesn't necessarily apply to all the spending because there are some levies that are not that are omitted from that cap, such as the benefits and the salaries and the debt. But everything else applies to that 2%, which I think is a good thing. I had an email exchange with a colleague in New York, and New York has a 2% property tax cap, and New York's not really known as a taxpayer-friendly state, but they do have a very good property tax cap. That's a 2%, and that has actually saved taxpayer dollars on the property tax side. And so I think we have to be careful going forward that one of the reasons why, and I would tell our listener, the person who asked that question, one of the reasons why past property tax bills had failed really to provide any relief is that they failed to address local government spending. And so what you've seen is basically local governments continue to spend basically on autopilot. And I think it's always easy to focus so much on the assessments.
Well,
and we need to focus on, and this is why, I keep going back to why, like, if we could start from scratch, I would pick the Utah model.
Yeah.
And I know people get tired of me talking about that, but I think we need to focus on the spending side, and that's what I like about, you need a levy limit, a spending limit, because I was watching the talk about exciting the Kudlow program on Fox Business.
Well, I was going to say, go ahead. I know now we're on Kudlow. It's like, let's go, folks.
The economist Art Laffer said that government spending is taxation.
Yeah, and
that's what it is.
Well, see, here's the thing, John. I know you might think the folks get tired of you talking about Utah, but you're doing it with such a new zeal, and a new exuberance that I think folks are just drawn to it.
Yeah,
but you're right. It is. We are never going to stop talking about local government spending, and we believe that this bill is the outline. The thing they pass is not going to be exactly this bill, which is why we need to understand it so that we can help be a part of improving it. This is not the end. I sure hope it's not the end of this. And it's a step. And I know that both Representative Kaufmann and Senator Dawson have talked about a series of reforms. This should be seen as a step on that reform path. The There's some technical changes, and I don't like to spend a lot of time on the technical parts of it because if you're somebody that's mad because your property tax bill is high, you don't care about those technical pieces. You want to hear about your bill. That what's driving the bill is local government spending. Now, these technical changes can be helpful. One of the things that I think is going to be really helpful in a system like this is some simplification and make it easier for the next bills. One thing that made it easier to do all the income tax reforms that we did over the years was the changes to federal deductibility that we did. That made it a little simpler. Now we're at a flat tax, which makes it really simple to continue to tick that down. So I think there's some goodness. But here's an example on the local government spending side, John, in Axios Des Moines this morning talking about Polk County. I think we talked about this morning. Yeah. And they use it employee creep. So Polk County added the equivalent of nearly 125 FTEs over the last 4 years. That's a 9% increase just in the sheer number of people working for Polk County from over 1,400 to 1,541. And so now you have a sort of a new majority on the Polk County Board of Supervisors, not a partisan majority, but certainly a different group of folks making the decisions that want to try and get at this.
Yeah.
But that's a huge number because that comes with all of the employee benefits. And so I would use this as one example that I will not accept that Polk County is the only place where this has happened.
Yes.
Polk County is not the only place in Iowa where they have added staff.
Yeah.
And guess what? And I'm going, John.
Yeah.
I'm going to get really exciting and fun now.
Yeah.
So don't stop me.
Okay.
These 100 and some positions are not all police and fire.
Yeah.
Okay? And so when we talk about, hey, guys, you might want to, slow down on the spending a little bit, and they want to scream police and fire, and their communities are going to, be completely chaotic and lawless, and your house is going to burn to the ground if we institute a 2% spending cap, maybe you should go into the 9% increase in headcount for a place to maybe try and save a couple of dollars, as we only say you should not grow quite as fast. That's all. I don't think that's outlandish. And so kudos to Polk County for trying to take a look at this and seeing what of this can we do without. And we're not even talking about the salary and benefits that are offered inside of these positions, which are very lucrative in many places.
Yes.
So it's about spending. So I would come back to the tax bill, though, because, again, we're trying to what's in here that people need to think about. I think the big win right now for taxpayers is a 2% spending cap. We'd like to try and find ways to include more in that overall, and it's a revenue cap. It's not a spending cap. I need to use but that to put some kind of limitation on that. The school funding stuff, John, I'm still trying to understand, and we're still trying to model that. I understand what it does. We're still trying to understand the actual impact to an individual taxpayer because, a lot of that is moving dollars in the name of simplicity and transparency, and a good thing is just moving dollars from sort of one way, one funding stream to another. And I don't know how many actual dollars are going toward a reduction in tax burden, but we're gonna figure that out, and we're gonna what is it? How does it impact the individual Iowan who's mad about their property taxes? And did you see this? I know you spend a lot of time on social media, John. We've run some ads trying to send out this calculator on how to, shameless plug for that. So you get the form in the mail, right? That has, supposed to try and tell you how much your tax is going up, which again needs improvement. But so we're running some Facebook ads trying to, say, hey, we got a calculator. We can help you understand that. And it is always refreshing to go in and look at the comments on these posts because it is one after the other of folks that are just done. They are mad at their property tax burden. And you and I, we spend a lot of time in this policy world, the insulated think tank or the walls of the Capitol, where the debate is different than what people are actually talking about out there. And it was a reminder of the things that folks told legislators in this last campaign. Is that we're mad about our property tax burden. You need to do something about it. And so we go up to the Capitol and we get to work on our policy. And it's a reminder to all of us that are in this business that you have to continue to look outside the walls of the Capitol and outside of the lobbying and the rotunda and the walls of your think tank. People are mad. They're stretched thin and they want help.
Mm.
And that needs to be the focus. I'm not saying ignore what your mayor or your supervisors say, or ignore the League of Cities, or ignore ISAC or the score. No, absolutely you should talk to them. But the person who you need to listen to the most is the one that's out there screaming for help. It's the one that you went and knocked on their door last August when it was 95 degrees out, and you knocked on their door and said, is there anything important to you? And they said, you know what? I'm really mad about my property taxes. That person should be in the front of the line when we're trying to figure out what to do on a property tax bill.
That's right. Yeah.
And I was just a reminder that they're still out there and they're still mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, another thing I want to mention, just in answer to that question, in addition to the 2% cap, is the homestead exemption is switching from the credit to the exemption.
Yeah.
That will serve taxpayers as well. But you brought up a good point about Polk County, and this is just a very small example, but I was a high-ranking official at one time. I don't know if you know that. I mean, I was a chair of a powerful finance committee.
Yes.
On a library board. And we took out the scalpel and we, fine-tuned the budget. And we went line by line and found all kinds of waste. And little things such as, buying too much paper clips, buying too much envelopes, and all that stuff adds up.
Right.
And when you're talking about employees and benefits, that's even a bigger cost. But so it can be done. That can be done. The other thing you reminded me of is when I first started in this business, especially looking at tax policy. In fact, when you guys were doing the 2018 tax bill, I learned this, is that tax policy should not be revolutionary. It should be prudent. Mm-hmm. Because when tax policy is done recklessly, then it leads to chaos, it leads to problems. And I hate to say this because I think a lot of people are going to get mad at this, but property tax relief is going to take time. And what I mean by that is you're not going to see drastic cuts right away, just like the income tax.
Yeah.
And when you see states that have done property tax successfully, income tax successfully, it happens over a period of time. It does not just happen overnight. So I don't think people should expect that there's going to be one bill passed and then they're going to see a big relief in in the next bill cycle, because this will take time. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth, because you just cannot, as they say, take a meat cleaver to the budget like that. And I know that probably makes me sound like a liberal, but I'm just saying that.
Well, you're certainly squishy, but we need
that. But I think that's the truth of the matter, though.
Well, I think so. I think you take the biggest leaps that you can.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm going to put on my leader hat for a minute. Part of the challenge is how far can we go? And and there's a balance that comes with that, because you have legislators that are part of your majority that want to go further than others, and finding the balance of that. And maybe that's the way of the institution self-regulating the way that you had. But you always should aim for a big bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, though, and I say this, and this is not offered in any spirit of moderation, but I know how those conversations work in the building, and not even just among individual legislators, but in the back office or downstairs, when the high level decisions are made, is that these folks genuinely want to do not the big thing and not only the big thing in the conservative, although they want that. They the wins are motivating, but they very much want to do the wise thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the smart thing. And it is not, I know there's this narrative that comes out of the opposition side that it's somehow reckless or they don't care. And I'm telling you that is absolutely not the way that goes down. You may not agree with them. You may be someone that wants to drive down the middle of the road and don't want anything crazy. But don't confuse those things, because these folks are trying to absolutely make sure the budget balances, make sure these projections on tax bills work, make sure that their property tax bill doesn't have huge unintended consequences, which is really hard to do.
Yes, yeah.
On a property tax, because it's so complicated.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, maybe I'm not articulating that the way I wanted to, but I'm trying to come alongside of what you said about being prudent or not being revolutionary.
No,
I think, but I'm trying to say that that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that these folks do that.
Yeah.
We know we've got a governor, a Senate Majority Leader, a speaker, and the people around them that want to do the big thing on property tax relief. And it's genuine, but they also want to do it the right way. And that's good too. And we support that. But part of our role in the process, John, is to keep encouraging them that aiming for the big thing is still appropriate.
That's right. Yeah.
You should do it the right way.
Yeah.
And I trust that they will. But we're also still going to encourage them to go for as much as they can.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. And that's why, we've been pounding the spending side. For over a year, I guess we've been doing that. And but anyways, I just think locals should follow the example of what the legislature has done with the income tax.
Yep.
Slow the growth of spending, and you can start lowering rates. I mean, that's what you have to do. I think, and then do what the governor has done with the state reorganization. Start reforming your local governments that way. Look for efficiencies. Look for, do you have, Polk County, do you have a surplus of, is there administrative creep going on where you have the bureaucracy expanding, and look for ways to rein in government. And
that is hard work. Mm-hmm. And often no one pays attention to it. No one is going to, no constituent is going to send you an email or thank you for that critical eye that you just did on the Department of XYZ and their 5% surcharge and this, efficiency that you've had. No one's going to thank you at the ballot box for that work, but it's still important.
Yeah. And
it's still the right thing to do. I was talking with a mayor of one of our suburban communities here just last week and talking about this, that they do. And he was telling me about, we're digging in to some of the nitty gritty here and trying to find these efficiencies and trying to find places to save. And I know that it's true. And so sometimes, look, it's easy to bang on local governments because there's a lot of them that need, frankly need the accountability. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But I acknowledge that hard work doesn't get appreciated enough. And that's just, well, it is what it is. It's part, people step forward. They want to be leaders. They want to be involved in doing policy, and hopefully we have enough people that want to do those kinds of things to help honor the taxpayers that sent them there. So, and
let's look at one other point that I think gets forgotten in the property tax discussion is that when we start seeing property taxes get lowered in Iowa, I believe not only will that bring in more revenue for local governments, because that's going to create more growth, but that's actually going to make us even more competitive, because that's going to make us more attractive for not just people but small businesses. Because small businesses are subject to property taxes too, and so we focus a lot of times on homeowners, but this is also a lot of business owners struggle with property taxes, and so this is a growth issue as well.
That is a great point, John. I want you to hold that. I want you to take note of that, because that opens a whole can of worms that we don't have time for today. Other than you nailed right there is the core of the issue that we too often have to fight at any level of government, is the idea that taking tax dollars and spending them on stuff, on buildings, on projects, on initiatives, on whatever, that is the tool to grow our state and our communities. And they fundamentally believe that. And any threat to that is a threat to that idea. We believe that putting those dollars back in the pockets of property taxpayers, of income taxpayers, of whatever, that in and of itself grows the economy through having more dollars in the system. The dollars in an individual Iowan's pocket is far more powerful than dollars inside a government budget. And that is a philosophical difference that we are not going to resolve today. But I'd sure love to talk about it more.
That's right. Yeah,
day.
that's right.
And if you want to hear more about it, I have a hunch that somebody's going to touch on it at the ITR NFIB Tax Day Luncheon, which is coming up next week too.
Yeah,
so get registered.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Were we exciting enough today?
I
like
think
if
so,
you
yeah.
were just a first-time listener and you tuned into the show, you're like, you know what? I got to come back. I got to hear more from this
I bet
guy.
they will come back.
Because someday, folks, we're going to have me, we're going to have John, we're going to play Hoover Ball
That's
here in the
right.
middle of the studio.
Yeah.
It's not going to be next. It's not going to be next episode, but you're going to have to keep tuning in because someday it's going to happen. All right, that's all I got for today, John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have one more thing. This is a Iowa Doge update.
Oh, okay, good. That's
Iowa agencies must justify new positions, but governor's office says no hiring freeze. And so basically, just quickly, that Governor Reynolds has a new protocol saying that if there's a new job position, they have to justify, which I think is a good thing.
You know what? I think that's a great thing. I think what we should do in the property tax bill is a statewide review of all new hiring from local government has to go across your desk.
Yeah.
You can be the archduke of local government hiring.
Yeah.
It has to be approved by renowned finance official, veteran, local government budgeter, John Hendrickson. He's got all the answers for you. All right, we really are done now. Thanks, folks. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell your friends and all that. We will see you next time on ITR Live.